taken over the organization and look forward to working with all of you in many different capacities. It's been said, and I quote, "Every election is a learning process. You learn from every election, the one you win and the one you lose, and then you prepare for the next one." That's my purpose today in revisiting the wins, the losses, and the takeaways from the May 21st primary. And Brandon, you got me, right? Okay, thanks. All right. We had one legislative race, and that was mine, that was competitive. While we lost, we have much of which to be proud. We made Senator Watson earn his seat for the first time in 5 terms or 10 years. We made him spend lots of money that had just been accumulating in his account over all these years that he's run unopposed. In addition, we made him have to be more accountable in the most recent General Assembly session. Before this session, and I'm being serious, I'm not sure he'd ever sponsored a bill before. I haven't checked that, but there's a question out there. Between January and March of this year, however, he sponsored and co-sponsored numerous bills. These bills were in the area of protecting religious rights, election integrity, and protecting children from woke ideology, areas he's never played in before. This pressure should carry on to the next session also at the beginning of 2025, so another accomplishment. Senator Watson's also now aware that 41% of his base isn't happy with him in Chatham County, 41% isn't happy in Liberty County, and 33% isn't happy in Bryan County. Out of 13,451 votes, I only lost by 1,500 or so, which is pretty good. We should be proud of this showing as we gave him a run for his money. He will have to wonder if I or someone else will step up and run against him in 2026. And I'm not telling. Let's keep him on his toes. As a bit of background for this next slide, for those of you who haven't been on the school board journey with us for the past 3 years, our little effort to flip the seats in the school board started in August of 2021 with a ragtag team of about 20 of us called the School Board Action Team. And I see faces in here who were on that original team. We put up 2 candidates late in the game in 2022 in the primary, and ladies on the right endorsed Roger Moss for chairman. Our candidates were brave enough to agree to run, and we made a statement to the Board of Education that we were serious about being willing to flip the liberal board. With the financial support of Ladies on the Right members, Roger Moss won as chairman, and the other 2 candidates had a good run but didn't run. After the losses, we began almost immediately looking for candidates for 2024. One of our learnings is that you can never start too early looking for good candidates to run next time. The Chatham GOP was instrumental in finding 2 amazing candidates for District 1 and District 7. The slide tells the story. Barbara Hubbard only lost by 57 votes in District 1. Stephanie Campbell pulled off an amazing feat. Stephanie, you want to stand up so everybody sees you? She unseated the incumbent in a 3-way race without a runoff, almost unheard of. Stephanie ran a flawless campaign and was the only candidate to knock on all the doors in her district. This has been another learning to carry forward. The closer a candidate and his or her team comes to knocking on all the targeted doors in their geography, the better their chances of winning, even against an incumbent. Next slide. The most conservative candidates won in these 2 state judges' races. Since it was a state geography, even though one of these candidates lost in Chatham, you can see up there, Pinson, he still won for the state, thank goodness. I credit the Get Out the Vote team and LOTR with getting information out to all of us who wondered who in the world to vote for in this state judge's race. As Jerry Gibbs says, friends don't let friends vote blind. Next slide. Two of the local judges that are Get Out the Vote team and LOTR supported won. We're excited about that. I can tell you that Mackey and Moss knocked on a lot of doors. More evidence for the power of door knocking. We were very disappointed that our friends, Anthony Burton and Frank Pennington, didn't win this time. So what are the takeaways from all of this? First of all, it's not about just whether you win or lose, it's what was accomplished in the process. Sometimes it takes more than one election cycle to get a win. In this culture, it's an advantage not to be a politician. Start 2 years ahead of the election, at least, to find a good candidate. And finally, with a good candidate, door knocking is a major key. Next, regardless of all of our good intentions, people don't always vote on election day. We have to hold their hands sometimes and walk them in the door of their precinct. Thanks to ladies on the right and the Get Out the Vote team for creating this initiative. I look forward to great things to come from this team as we approach November and especially in the presidential election. And also for Andre Pretorius, our next guest. Finally, the last slide, since we now have this school board leverage in the fact that they know that we can unseat them in an election, we've succeeded, took a while, but we've done it. We want them to vote tonight to roll back the millage rate so that our property taxes don't increase. We need anybody who can tonight to show up. The information's on the screen, or you can contact one of us and just fill a seat. A lot of you have already attended the other 2 meetings, and that was great. We had about 50 people and 10 speakers last week. So we need as many people there as possible tonight. If you're free, come fill a seat, show them you care. They will be voting tonight. Let's hold them accountable. Please come, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth. I think when you hear that Barbara Hubbard lost by only 58 votes, and you're like, wow. All right? I mean, so that is the importance of getting folks out to vote. And Jeanette, I believe there are like 5,000 Republicans identified just here on Skidaway Island. If we can get every Republican on Skidaway Island to just vote, we've got it. And we can make a difference. So that's a big goal that we have for the fall, but we're up for it. And so now I'd like to introduce Brittany Brown. She is chairman of our CCGOP. At the last quarterly meeting, one of the things she did was pass out a 2-page document. Well, it was really front and back. She conserves paper of all the accomplishments of the CCGOP in her first year. And it's amazing, it's breathtaking, and it's leadership like this that we need to move forward. So she's here to share an update on the Trump campaign. So Brittany?
Thanks, Jody. And thank you for always being gracious. I always love coming to Ladies on the Right. I am friends with a lot of you, so I will make this quick so we can get to Andre, because he is the most important person in the room today. We need him to win to take back our county and hopefully start prosecuting some criminals, which will be exciting. Yes. So, Trump Force 47, how many of you have received an email regarding that? Have you guys seen that? Okay. Okay, there's a lot of you. So Trump Force 47 is the program that the Trump campaign has launched. It's going to look a little different than you've seen in his campaign before. We're really focused on making sure that we are targeting voters that typically don't show up. So these are people that show up maybe 2 of the last four elections, 1 of the last 4 elections, or maybe they just moved here, or maybe they're 18 and they haven't voted yet. So those are the people that we're targeting, and it's going to be no different here in Chatham. We are looking for people to be Trump Force 47 captains, which means you get door knocking lists, you make phone calls, you hand out Trump signs, and it's about creating energy and building relationships around the campaign. So we're really excited about what that will look like, and any Republicans that we get to turn out only helps us down ticket here in Chatham. And I think for the first time in Chatham, we have an opportunity to flip not only the DA seat, but we also have the county commission, which is a really, really, really big deal. We have not seen that in a very long time. So we have the opportunity to switch it to a 5-seat majority if we have Republicans show up and vote, which is really important. And the chairman position is one of the most important seats because it does hold a lot of power here in our county. So working for Trump only helps our down ticket ballot. So I'm hoping that some of you will, or all of you will volunteer to be Trump Force 47 captains. We are having a Trump Force 47 ribbon cutting at the GOP office on Saturday at noon. You are all invited. Buddy Carter will be there, Ben Watson will be there, as well as Ron Stevens. Jesse's out of town, but those guys will all be there, and a couple of other people from the Trump campaign in Atlanta will also be down here. So hopefully you all can make it out to that, but just wanted to touch base with you guys. And if you guys are interested in being a Trump Force 47 captain, please let me know. That's it.
And as I said, as information comes out from the CCGOP, we'll echo that and get it out to everybody. Now we've got some action going on up here as we're getting ready for Andre, but I get to give you an introduction. Are you gonna, do you need to get up here or? Okay, so Brandon and I are tag teaming here. So it's interesting when you meet a speaker, you say, please send me a bio or whatever. And I thought it was important for you, so thank you. I usually talk too loud. Okay, that's better. I thought it was important for you to get to know Andre as a person before he comes up and talks as a candidate. And so here's his life in a couple of pages. He was born in South Africa and lived there for 15 years. That's a good trivia question for somebody. After moving to the U.S., he received his degree from Georgia State and his law degree from John Marshall as a part-time night student. And as somebody who got her MBA working and going to night school, I can appreciate how hard that is. He worked full-time, mostly in public works and in construction. His first job in the legal field was in the Hall County Solicitor's Office, where he earned the Assistant Solicitor General of the Year Award. So he started off really strong. Andre was a Deputy Chief Assistant District Attorney over the state court here in Chatham County for 8 years. He created multiple diversion groups. These programs were hugely successful, with around 95% of the defendants who completed the programs not committing future crimes. Very impressive. He had a domestic violence court program that included treatment programs, victims, victim witness advocates, and constant monitoring of cases and court order treatments. He also monitored homeless cases and had special DUI and shoplifting dockets. As a deputy chief, he took on a large caseload, which was not only processing cases in state court, but also in the recorder's court, magistrate court. Now, for all those who were here in February, you should know all these courts, and in Thunderbolt and Tybee. This I thought was very interesting. One of his biggest achievements in the state court was moving to an electronic discovery system. This not only helped move cases, but gave defense attorneys the ability to speak with potential clients before their first appearance in the state court, knowing the facts and having a plea offer ready. It enabled them to carry a caseload between 10 to 12,000 cases per year. He is currently an assistant court attorney in Chatham County and also the solicitor for Tybee Island and the part-time assistant solicitor in Effingham County. I'm almost there. So that's his work history. But on the other side, in his free moments, where I'm not sure when you get them, he is an active board member of WELD, which is We Encourage Living Donors. He is passionate about living organ donations and has spoken to different groups on the need and the benefit for living organ donors. He was an advisory member of the Helping Hands of Savannah organization, where he helped underprivileged youth and adults. He is currently on the board for Operation Kid Forward, which is an organization that helps underprivileged youth in our community. Andre is married to Gretchen, who is a labor and delivery nurse who is now a women's health nurse practitioner. And they have 3 boys who all attend public school. And they keep him busy because he is Cub Master for Pack 57. We even talked about that at lunch. He was a PTA president for Hess School K through 8 for 2 years and has been coaching youth soccer for 19 years. And to round this all off, he's a man who, when you reach out and call somebody and say, would you come speak to the ladies on the right? He picked up the phone. He's been very gracious. He's a great communicator. So all around, just a good, solid person. So now that you know Andre a little bit better of who he is, I'd like to ask him to please come up here and he can explain what is the district attorney, what is going on, and once elected, what are you going to do? All right, Andre?
That's what's showing, and then that's what's next.
Okay,
Then you just press the space bar for the next one.
perfect. Hey, my name is Andre. My last name is Pretorius, but I generally just go by Andre. So whenever you talk to me, you can just say, hey, Andre. A lot of people don't know how to pronounce my last name, but it's like Notorious, just Pretorius. I am not the Blade Runner. I have both of my legs. I'm not in prison. I didn't kill anybody. So, as she said, I was born and raised in South Africa, and my mom's a single mom. She had 3 kids at the time. We lived in what we would call government housing out there. We were very poor, very, very poor, because it's hard for a female to make money in any kind of industry out there. So eventually, my mom was dating a guy, and we had 6 kids in 1 bedroom, and my mom and her boyfriend, and he was an abuser. And the last time we saw him is when my mom knocked him out 1 punch, and we walked over him as we left that house. So yeah. And that's what started my passion for domestic violence and domestic violence victims, because I never want to see anybody else go through something like that. And so after we left, she married another individual, and we moved to the U.S. after that, lived all over here, eventually settled in Atlanta. And while I was there, my mom then wanted to move back to Delaware after I graduated high school. I did not want to move to Delaware. I hate snow. So I was 17, and I ended up being homeless. So I was homeless for about 9 months, ended up sleeping in a tent in San Diego. Great beach. Now, I love surfing, so it was good. But, it was not the direction that my life should have been going in, so I decided to make a change and came back to Atlanta to fix what was going on, and met a prosecutor out here who kind of helped me get back into school, and then I got a male mentor who helped me get a job, and that's kind of how I discovered that, if you are working and if you are doing the right things and if you make your own money, you do not want to commit crimes, right? You know that you've got something to eat, you've got money, you've got a place to stay, and those are the important things, and these are the things that we're teaching to kids now. While I was doing that, I worked in construction. Construction was great. I made $120,000 a year doing that. I worked all the time. So, it was 7 days a week. I would go out of town, and I loved it, right? And that's what I teach kids as well when I go out and speak in high schools, is that, listen, you don't have to always go to college. You can go out, you can learn a trade, you can do whatever you need to do to get wherever you need to go, and you can make good money doing that. Then I got my law degree, and then I worked in the solicitor's office where I was making $35,000 a year. Terrible idea. But I love giving back to the people. I wanted to be a prosecutor for that specific reason, that I want to help the youth. I want to help kids get away from committing these crimes and ending up in prison, because I saw how it worked for me, and I want to make sure it works for other people as well. And so left there. I was about to go into the FBI, but my wife found out that I will be going back to Africa because I spoke like 9 languages, and that's where they wanted to send me, and I was like, no. So I came, and I was running in the Savannah Marathon down here, the Rock and Roll Marathon, and I saw the signs up for Meg, read about her read that she was a victim advocate and that she cares about victims. So when she won, I applied and I got the job here. Part of that, we moved down here, and we love this community. This community's been great to us, and so we want to do good things in the community. My wife is on the Safe Shelter Board. We've done different things. That's why I like being involved with kids and kid programs, so that's why I'm a Cub Scout leader. That's why, because the Cub Scout, and what I like about Cub Scouts is that they teach you the right things to do, how to act, and basically to care about yourself and to care about your environment, right? I mean, like, pick up your trash after yourself, leave the place as you found it. It's very important to have those things and to learn about God and how God affects your life and how you have those morals. The problem is that youth these days, they don't have those. And when they're dropping out of, when they're dropping out of school and they're doing the things that they're doing, you can tell they don't understand that guns hurt people. Beating up other people hurts people, right? And you end up in jail, you end up in prison, and your life is gone. So that's where we're trying to fix that program. But the DA's office, when I left there, I worked for this DA for about 8 months. The problem was that everything was so lenient, right? I mean, like, you have kids come in or adults come in who already have 3, 4, 5 arrests, and nothing is being done to them. And there was no way to meet with your DA to find out, well, what are we going to do with this? What are we going to do with that? She was always behind closed doors. You couldn't set up any meetings with her for anything. And there were no programs that were being run. So I got the opportunity to work in the county attorney's office, and at the county attorney's office, I mean, I like it. It's civil work, it's dealing with all the contracts and all the lawsuits against the police, all the lawsuits against the sheriff's office, any inmate. I've gotten my first 100 bar complaints from inmates at the jail because they think that I'm their lawyer, and I'm like, no, I don't represent you. I'm actually the opposite. So, so with that, it's a different environment, and being part of that, I run into a lot of people that deal with our blueprint programs, where the county gives them money to help fund organizations, and a lot of these organizations said, we have not had any kind of communication with the DA's office, right? And so they needed someone to run, and I was like, well, okay, if I can keep my benefits, because I have kids, 3 kids, all 3 of them are ADHD, and they all need medication, everything else. So therefore, when that finally got settled, I want to say it was the week before qualifying, I finally got the approval to have that. So I'm on unpaid leave, and now I am an assistant solicitor in Effingham County where I prosecute. I'm actually an assistant DA, but I work in the solicitor's office. So I prosecute all the misdemeanor cases out there. I just got a new boss, really nice guy. And then I also can work with the DA's office out there and handle some of the felony cases that they have. So the difference in how cases are being treated there is just stark. And I'm going to go through some of these things that we have through this presentation so that you guys can understand kind of what's going on in our current DA's office. And I know you guys have seen some of the news and the media that's come out about the office and some of the things that's going on, but that's just part of it. And so the first thing that you guys all probably know is that she's not trustworthy, and the federal judge said she's not trustworthy. The federal judge wrote that the Chatham's lead prosecutor, who is the DA, was someone willing to mislead judges and plaintiffs as she struggles to handle the challenges of her office. It was behavior that the judge said deeply troubled him. Cook Jones's pattern of compounding and willful failures demands significant sanctions, and she was sanctioned. And that sanction means that the lawsuit that was filed against her by a previous assistant district attorney who was a military veteran with PTSD, that specific case, her answer was struck, which means she has no more defenses, right? So it's basically just down to how much money is she going to have to pay for that lawsuit, right? She shirked her discovery obligations. She failed to honor her word that she would appear for a deposition, mocked the court's orders, and made material misrepresentations to the court. What that means is that she lied to 2 separate judges in this case, right? And that's what Judge Baker pointed out. And it's not a political thing, it's not anything like that, it's just that she literally made these misrepresentations to the court. That's one thing you can't do. You can't lie to one of the judges. They don't like that. So the next thing I want to bring up too is that in WTOC and Savannah Morning News did this article, and it basically showed that Chatham County has a low murder conviction rate compared to other counties. And you're talking about Gwinnett County, DeKalb County, Fulton County. I mean, look at their conviction rates. 57% in Gwinnett County, DeKalb County is at 87%, Fulton County is at 87%, and Cobb County is at 100% conviction. Back when Meg was there, it was 95% conviction rate for murder cases, right? And we are currently at a 32% conviction rate, which means 2/3 of every murder case that goes to that court is lost. Only 1 out of 3 people get convicted on those. So what did she do to fix that problem? Low pleas for murder cases, right? This one was one that they covered. It's in one trial, a defendant charged with 2 counts of murder for shooting deaths of 2 young men, pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter, sentenced to 20 years. He was in jail for 3 years at the time that he took this plea, and he got 17 years on probation. He was released the day he took this plea. So he's back in the community. And yes, he's already violated probation. And the next one is, the other problem that we have is that she abolished the Special Victims Unit. And why is that important to us? Because the SVU was one of the places where we had our strongest prosecutors, because you have child molesters, you have rapists, and domestic violence victims, and you're talking about the #1 killer or determination of somebody that would kill a police officer is someone who is willing to strangle his wife or girlfriend. And so you have to know how those things work. And so currently you don't have that. And so therefore, when those prosecutors are gone and they don't have that training and they're just giving this to any brand new prosecutor that just walks off the street, they don't understand dynamics, they don't understand what evidence you can get for these cases. And so these cases are also being pled down. And this is worrying for law enforcement, because if you know that a person that is willing to strangle his wife, and it's an indicator, it's a 90% indicator that that person will shoot and kill a police officer, those people need to be behind bars for a long time. And they need to be prosecuted. And this is where our biggest struggle comes in. So it's unsafe for any police officer to know that these things are going on. And it's the first time in decades that this has happened. Chatham County Attorney's Office was the first DA's office in the state to create the Victim Witness Office. And so therefore, we saw the studies, we saw how it works, and cooperation between victim advocates, police officers, that's essential. And so part of that is that they had weekly meetings where they would go through some of these cases and say, hey, what do we do with this? Well, that's all gone. 2021, she stopped having those meetings. And the police officers get no direction on where to go, what to investigate, what additional evidence they would need. And so they lack that. And so where we used to do those things, where we would sit down with police officers and say, hey, we need this, this is what we need to do, this is how we're going to get this person here, they don't have that anymore. The Chatham DA's office, like I said, was run by Spence Lawton, who started the Victim Witness Program, and then when Meg took it over, we still had that, and that division grew to 6 attorneys that handled SVU cases. Very experienced, lots of training. But in 2024, January 2024, none of those prosecutors are there. Jenny Parker was the last SVU prosecutor that was still left at that office, and she's no longer there. And when you speak to them, the problems that we have is that the attorneys in the DA's office, even if you were an SVU, is that you now had to take on all these additional cases, so you don't have time to go and do this specialized group. A prosecutor generally would be involved in sex crimes from the first days so that we can figure out what we need to do, what kind of evidence we have, and that's no longer occurring. They don't get that case until basically it hits their desk, and then generally it goes through 8, 9 prosecutors because so many people have left. And you have to establish that rapport with the sexual assault survivors in this case. You have to be able to, because every time she needs a new prosecutor and she has to retell that story, that's more trauma for that person because she's like, I just told this person this. I just told this, but why am I having to tell you the same thing again? And it kind of makes them lose their faith in what's going on in that office. So part of how this has affected further is the Crime Victim Bill of Rights. And part of that means that anytime somebody is arrested on a domestic violence case or one of these sex crime cases, that you have, as a victim, the right to hear what's going on with my case. When I call, I'm supposed to know. Well, you're supposed to also know if the person's going to get a bond, what kind of plea deal he's going to get. You're supposed to know, and you're supposed to have input in that. There are cases now where victims are finding out that their person who was arrested on that charge is out, and they don't hear from the DA's office. They hear from a police officer. They hear from the sheriff's office that says, hey, this guy's getting out. No other warning, no talk to the victim advocate to say, hey, this is what we want your input, come to the court hearing, none of that. So by the time all this has happened, this guy's already out. And it happened with a specific case where a lady, and she contacted the news media because not only was the guy getting out, because she thought that the case would be indicted and that he would stay in jail the whole time based on the fact that how badly he had beaten her. But they didn't even indict that case within 90 days, and he got out on a bond because he's mandatorily obligated to get a bond by a judge. So it's not that you can oppose bond all you want, but you have to do your job as well. And this one lady found out that the person got out of jail because she saw it in the news 3 months after he got out. So, oh, wait, go to the next one. So, and this is one of the cases that made me very sad when I read, and I've met this victim once, and she said that there was a rape case that had been assigned to 3 separate prosecutors, all of whom resigned from the DA's office, and 3 victim advocates. The victim said she had trouble getting basic information about the case status from the DA's office. She would call, she would get no response. The victim advocate didn't know what's happening with the case, none of that. She said she was never provided with anything from the Crime Victims Bill of Rights, which is they are required to do under Georgia law. That basically states that survivors have the right to be kept up to date on all court proceedings or any changes to such proceedings, and they can seek compensation through the Georgia Crime Victims Fund. And then she further said, it's a lack of transparent information to understand the process. Why do they have the right to decide how I feel, how I get to feel safe after being violated? So let me tell you a little bit about the case. In 2021, she was kidnapped and raped in a graveyard, right? And so the person, she tried to reach out. She didn't hear much. Like I said, as you can tell, she didn't hear much from the victim advocates. She didn't know which prosecutor was doing it. She didn't know anything about the case. But in March 2022, the case was going to trial. The victim at this time knew that her assailant had also previously been convicted of sexual assault, another rape case, in a different jurisdiction. She just wanted to know if that's going to be brought up at the trial. Nobody knew. Nobody talked to her about that. And then when she was talking to her friend, she says that the trial is coming up, and I have never spoken to the prosecutor in this case. So the person who's going to present her testimony and her evidence in court has never even spoken to her. Then she got news that the guy is going to enter a plea, and the plea deal originally was for 5 years in prison for a rape and a kidnapping. Then it changed down to 2 years by the time she got to court. So they did all this negotiation without informing her of anything until the day she was there. He ended up pleading guilty to 1 count of kidnapping, 1 count of sexual battery, and 1 count of criminal attempt to rape. He was sentenced to 2 years, and the rest was on probation. He had already served most of that, and he was released from prison after only serving 8 months of that 2-year sentence. And he's violated probation since then, just so you know. She said, I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I don't care about that. This is a bipartisan issue. This is an issue for all mothers, daughters, sisters, children, cousins, grandmas, best friends. I don't care. Try to go through that yourself without having to hunt down information and waste your life and have it kill your business just to watch no justice be served for the innocent. So let me get to the probation office offers on murder cases. So that was a rape case, right? Victim witness is not working. Those things aren't working in the office anymore. So now we get to, she has these murder cases. And this was in December of 2022. Of the 40 total cases prosecuted for murder between 2021 and 2022, with the DA, 27 of those murder cases ended in less than murder convictions. This showed that the DA's office is pursuing a higher rate of plea deals in murder cases, leading to lesser charges such as voluntary manslaughter rather than murder convictions. And then the thing with this is that there's also a shortage of prosecutors. At least 42 prosecutors have left the DA's office since 2021. That's January of 2021. We only staffed 41, and 42 have left. The criminal defense bar and the defense attorneys say this is the worst that the office has been in 30 years. There are literally courtrooms that have no prosecutors assigned to it. That's 700 to 1,000 cases that no one's looking at and are not getting court dates. So prosecutors have left. There's currently 12 assistant DAs to prosecute those felony cases. Is fewer than half of what is needed to do those caseloads. And she'll say, well, we can manage without that. But yes, you manage with it by just reducing everything and pleading them all out to probation. Here's another one where they use a prosecutor that used to be a public defender. This is his first prosecutor job. He's never had to try the prosecution side of it. He did not bring in the medical examiner to explain how the person died, right? So they lost the murder case because the judge told him that, no, you have to prove the death. They didn't do that. And this is what the judge says, the first time in 30 years that someone could do that, that I've had to do a directed verdict, that the case does not go to a jury. I mean, and this is a person that was witnessed. Eyewitnesses saw him shoot this person. The DA's response was that it was likely the CPR that was rendered on him by the Good Samaritan that may have killed him. Not the bullets in his chest, none of that. No, it may have been the CPR. I mean, that's ridiculous. So here's probation on another murder case that we have. The victim's mom called Jones's office for an update on a new trial date. She learned that the district attorney had offered Stevens a plea deal. Remember now, never been told about anything that's happening. They already offered a plea deal in this case, that they already accepted it, that they're going to reduce his charges from a murder to 3 years behind bars and 17 years on probation. He walked out of jail the day of the plea. She said, I didn't even get an opportunity to sit down with the DA and ask her why. And she says she needs to be held accountable, and anyone else that does this that needs to be held accountable, because it doesn't just affect the family, it affects our community, which is the most thing that you can think of, is that if we're letting murderers, people who are willing to kill, out, and other people are hearing this, they know that there's not going to be any kind of punishment for them when they get out. She has made Savannah unsafe for all of our citizens. And I was at the Downtown Business Association meeting recently, and in that meeting, they explained that every year, from year to year of the last 18 years, everybody else's murder rates have gone down except for Savannah. Savannah's rate actually, from last year to this year, increased by over 1,000%. Because last year, by this time, we had 1 murder. We currently have 14. And also, our aggravated assaults, kids with guns, guys with guns, shooting up around the place, we're about to break last year's record on that. The issue with that came up as well was that we used to have in our office one person, one DA, an ADA that would work in tandem with the federal prosecutor's office, so the U.S. Attorney's Office. Anytime we get a case that we want to upgrade or give harsher sentencing on, somebody with a gun who's shooting up the place, that's what we wanted to do. We're like, okay, we're going to handle our part of the case, but we want the feds to take this part of the case. Because when you get a sentence here in Superior Court, then we could add 10, 20, 30 years for that gun that he had as well. Well, the mayor reached out to her to set up that process again because that person was no longer there. She refused, and now the city had to go and get their own federal prosecutor. That prosecutor has been more successful in closing these cases out than our current DA's office is. I mean, we have shooters in Savannah and shooters who shot other people, innocent people that were just in their car. They got 2 years. 2 years on a shooting. And the federal prosecutor in cases similar to that has gotten 10 years. Just for the gun part. That's not for the other things, right? Just for the gun part. In that meeting was also Diana McGraw. She was with the Baldwin Park Neighborhood Association, and she stated that in the last 3 years, there's been a large uptick in shootings, crimes, and gang activity. So the police department's been working with them, getting people out there, meeting with the neighbors, saying, hey, if you see something, say something, we'll come and get those information to you. But the problem that the police department has is that as soon as they arrest somebody, they're right back out on bond a couple of days later, right? The residents would bring videos to the police department, and their gang guy would look at the videos and goes, oh, that guy's out on bond for a murder. That guy's out on bond for aggravated assault. That guy's out on bond for shooting. So there's a bunch of these cases going on, and they can't do anything about it because they're out on bond again. People are getting bonds because they are not, and this is specifically coming from some of the older men and older women that were there. They're getting bond because they are not indicted on time. There are people out on 2 to 3 felony cases, shooting, and you have 90 days to indict that case. Otherwise, they are automatically entitled to a bond. So if the judge in recorder's court says, no, I'm not going to give them a bond. If you don't indict that case within 90 days, they get back out on the street. When these kids are not afraid of being prosecuted, when they see that there's no kind of punishment for what they are doing and they can get right back out, they're not afraid to do anything, right? They can get right back out, they can get a bond, they'll be released within 90 days if they need to, and if they do shoot and kill somebody, they could get probation. How is that a deterrent? That's not a deterrent for these kids, right? I mean, most of our kids that were involved in the Ellis Square shooting were 17, 19, 21. I think that there was only one person over the age of 30, but the rest of them were all young kids with guns. Because they know, their friends tell them, don't worry, nothing's going to happen to you. You're just going to get a bond, you're going to be right back out. And they're not going to prosecute your case. There have been more plea deals in murder cases in 2 years at the DA's office than the prior 5 years. And I'm going to give you some of these. Derek Gallup, his murder was reduced to a voluntary. He got 17 years probation. He only served 3 years. Anthony Green was reduced from a murder down to a voluntary. 9 years probation. He served 1 year. 1 year on a murder. Charles Doles. He was pled down from a murder to a voluntary. He served 3 years and he got 12 years on probation. Sierra Mims, a murder, was given 7 years of probation, 3 years to serve, and she had already served those 3 years. Justin Stephen, 17 years on probation for a murder and 3 years to serve. Archie Bryant served 3 years, 17 years on probation. Brenton Harry, voluntary, he got 10 years probation, no jail time. So kids see these things because these are in the media. These things are out on the news, they're in the papers. They see that they can get these kind of plea offers. Why would they be deterred from doing what they're doing? And I can tell you, of these people here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 5 of the 7 have already violated probation more than once. So let me get to the Ellis Square shooting, because this is an interesting case study of what has happened. And that, it was 11 people were shot because 2 girls were fighting. So far, 6 people have been arrested, and the 7th one has still not been arrested. I think the 7th one is the most dangerous of all of them. And this is how this all happened. So Amari Harris, he was originally arrested in April of 2022 for fleeing or attempting to elude a police officer, which is a felony offense. That case has still not been indicted. That case has still not been prosecuted. This is from April of 2022. Nothing has happened with that case. He gets a second felony. In April of 2024, he gets a bond. He gets right back out 2 months later. He goes to Ellis Square and he shoots people there. 2 felonies, nothing was done. And they can say, well, you know, the judge grants bond. But yes, if you're out on a felony, one of the things that is required as a felony is that you are not allowed to commit any new offenses. You cannot be arrested again. So at the point when he got that one on April 20th, you file a motion to revoke bond and you put him back in jail. That is a prosecutor's ethics, a prosecutor's oath. You have to do that. If you don't do that, that's malpractice. They didn't do any of that. This guy went right back out and was arrested 2 months after. This is what makes the police officers mad. How can you get back out when we just arrested you and this is your second felony offense? Eric Street, this is the guy that I believe is the most dangerous of the lot. Eric Street, and I know it's really small, but it's because I have to put all those charges on the sheet for you. So in August of 2021, he was arrested for fleeing and eluding, hit and run, obstruction, and marijuana possession. That's a felony, fleeing and eluding, which means he went over 20 miles over the speed limit when he was fleeing from the police. So he gets that one. That case has not been indicted. It's not been prosecuted since 2021. Nothing has happened with that case. He gets back out. He is the shooter in one of the city market shootings. So 2 people were shot in that shooting. Him and his buddy went to trial on that case. Again, a new prosecutor who doesn't know much, hadn't had all that training, tried that case, lost some of the charges. The jury hung on the more important charges, the shooting, the gang stuff. So to get him to plea, they dropped the gang stuff, which is something that you would use to up your sentence, right? They dropped that gang stuff on both defendants. And for that shooting, with all those charges that they had, they got 2 years. And that, so 2022, he gets back out. And when he's out, and this is something that we used to do at the DA's offices, when I worked there, we noticed that a lot of domestic violence cases were falling through the cracks because we would hear from a victim that said, hey, no, I already went to court on a different case. I don't know what happened to it. And we found out they were all going to magistrate court getting their own warrants with no prosecutor sitting there helping them out. So I decided as part of our obligation is that we will go to magistrate court. That's one of the priorities that I had, is that we can't let these victims fall through the cracks. This case, she went to go get one. The judge granted a good behavior bond because no one explained to her what the difference between a warrant that somebody gets arrested on and a good behavior bond. He threatened to kill her, and she got a good behavior bond because there was no prosecutor in there. He violated that multiple times with the same victim. And she went back to court, but they couldn't serve him because they couldn't find him. That good behavior bond ran out. This is after he got out of prison, right? Not supposed to have a gun, none of that. Then he was one of the people involved in the Ellis Street shooting. And he's still out. We have not found him. They have not found him. I mean, I'm not blaming the police. They're going to find him. But this is the most dangerous one of the lot. William Mitchell, he was the first one that they arrested on this case. William Mitchell in, I believe it's March of 2022, he was arrested on a felony fleeing or eluding. He was, and he had a gun when he did that. He was released after 90 days being in jail, not being indicted. So he got a bond to go out. Then he got another felony offense in March of 2024, and they gave him a bond again. And then he committed the Ellis Street shooting. I mean, these are people that should be in jail, and this whole thing could have been avoided. Ja'Cory Porter. So Ja'Cory Porter was originally charged with false imprisonment, battery, domestic violence, and so that's a domestic violence case. He pled guilty to those charges. Went to jail, went to prison. This is during when Meg was there, when I was in office there as well. I think he got a 10-year sentence for that. Almost done, okay. And got out, got a new domestic violence charge, which would be a felony. Got a bond. They still haven't indicted that case. And then got another felony charge after that. And then an Ellis Street shooting. Cesar Cooper, same thing. Felony, out on bond, not indicted within 90 days. He should have been in jail. Next one, Kingsley Taylor. This is a different case now. Kingsley Taylor, May 17th shooting. Again, you see all these charges that he has. Got out on bond, they haven't indicted the case, they haven't accused the case. Then he gets back out, and he has got 4 pending felony cases, still out on bond. Still out on bond. Jadarius Crawford, released on bond for not being indicted within 90 days. Again, possession of firearm with he's out on aggravated assault with a firearm, not indicted, still not indicted. Got new possession of a firearm, felony murder case, right? So he killed someone after he was not supposed to be out on bond, but he got bond because he was there for 90 days, and he got a new murder case. Lawrence Morel, same thing, terroristic threats, domestic violence case, obstruction of police officers, got another felony charge, and then, so over 2 years, got 3 felony charges, got out of bond for all 3, and a new murder in March of this year. Joseph Stephen, out on 3 felony bonds, same thing, aggravated assault, possession of controlled substance.
Andre,
Yes.
I'm going to respectfully say,
That was my last slide.
oh, okay, that's good
Yeah.
for timing, because
All I
I'm,
wanna say is-
I just want to let you know, people are already like wanting to ask questions.
Okay.
Yep, we're ready.
Is that me? Yeah, that was my last slide. We just need a new DA, a DA you can trust, and I believe that I am that because I care. I care about our families. I care about my family. I don't want my kids to be killed downtown, right? I mean, I care about my wife. She works at Candler. I mean, like, we got to worry about those things. And if we can't feel safe in our own homes or our own areas, then what are we doing? Yes, I'm ready for questions. Oh, thank you.
All right, here, Marilyn.
I'd like to know what we can do to help you get elected.
Please, and that's one of the things that Brittany's doing is helping me get out the vote because we have a lot of votes to get. I mean, the Republicans are very outnumbered here in this county, so we have to get about 20,000 votes is what I was told. 63,000 total, but that's if we don't get all the Republican votes to come in, right? I mean, we have to get all the Republicans and an additional about 20,000 votes. So we're going to need to do fundraising, we're going to need to talk to people, get people, take people to the polls, go let them vote, please.
Marilyn?
Oh, yeah.
This is kind of a follow-on to what she was saying. You really have frightened me. I don't think I want to go downtown. Sounds like we are living in Chicago, we're living in New York, we're living in LA. How did we get this DA when we had Meg Heap and the one before her was wonderful and we didn't have all of this? So how did Jones get elected?
Well, it's a mixture of things. I think the main thing with that is there's a federal PAC that funds this campaign, and so you could tell from the previous campaign that happened, and currently there's another one, because when she was running against Jenny Parker, there was $131,000 just not even like a month before the election. And that money all goes to advertising and getting out those things and lying about people, so all those things go out. So it's money. And they have a lot of it. I mean, you're talking about $28 million that they can spread to whichever DA that they want to spread it out to, so they can spend. They can outspend us 100%. And the problem that I have with a federal PAC like this is that they do not care about our community. They've never even been to this community. They know nothing about the problems that we have here, and they do not care about the kids that go here. They have a mandate that says you must release people on bond. You must do these things, right? And so when you do that, it doesn't protect us.
Thank you. I think, yeah, that was heavy duty, that's for sure. But I'd like to know the first three things you're going to do if you're elected DA of Chatham County.
Thanks. Well, the first thing that you have to do is get prosecutors, right? And the main thing that I believe is you will have some prosecutors come back to that office, some experienced prosecutors, because it's not just a money thing. I didn't leave because of money, right? I mean, I just felt that what I was doing there was malpractice. If you give me all this work to do and you don't tell me what I'm doing or when I'm doing it, and you keep moving me from courtroom to courtroom, that's not a way for you to be an effective prosecutor. So you'll get some of those people to come back. And then you just need to go out to the law schools, just like campaigning. You got to knock on doors, talk to people, bring them here. What people understand when we hire people before, and prosecutors before, when you talk to them and you say, hey, give it a year, give it 2 years, come here, learn what a prosecutor is, learn how to try a case. By the time you're there and you deal with victims and you know and you see the difference that you make in their lives, and that they come back to you and they're crying on your shoulder and they see that justice was done, that keeps people there. When you're there and your soul gets broken because you keep seeing people get out because you're offering these things to people and you're not doing anything to prevent that, that's soul crushing, and so people don't want to stay there. And you just need to bring back those initiatives so people will want to work there. That's one thing that I would do, is get some new prosecutors. The next thing is restart the SVU unit, right? I mean, you have to have those prosecutors come in, get trained, train other people, bring in prosecutors to come and train everybody else again. And then the other thing is that we have so many, we used to have a family justice center, we used to have a good relationship with Safe Shelter, Rape Crisis Center, those things need to come back. And most importantly is to restart those relationships with police department, right? I mean, like, if you're not talking to the police department, they're not going to do anything. I mean, like, I can tell you, I have heard from different police officers that they're afraid to bring cases to the DA's office because they're afraid of what they're going to do. They're just going to dismiss it. They're not going to accuse. They're not going to indict it. And I don't want my name on something that's sitting out there for 2 years and this guy commits a murder, right?
Okay, Bert?
I'm still trying to understand how the judge could release the defendant when there was an eyewitness that saw that person shoot someone. Just release them.
Correct.
How could the judge do that?
So the way that evidence works is that you have to prove that that person died from the gunshot wound, right? So that's why you bring in a medical examiner that says, this is a homicide, this went through his heart and that's what killed him, right? You can't just go off of, well, it could have been this. You have to bring in some of that evidence. And if you don't prove that there was an actual death resulting from the aggravated assault or from the shooting, then the judge, by law, has to say that you haven't proven your case.
Okay, Glenn, your question?
Because a jury would have convicted that guy, I promise you.
I have a question that has to do with the system more than the election, but I don't understand why our system permits someone to behave like that in office without removing them except by an election. How can a person do things like she's done to our community and there not be some system in place to have her removed from office or prosecuted for crimes that she's committed or her pension taken away from her? How can that be?
So if she commits an actual crime, then yes. But the way that it is currently is Florida has one. Remember, the governor of Florida got rid of one of the prosecutors saying, you said that you're no longer going to prosecute these cases. I don't need you as a prosecutor. You're fired. And he could do that. Georgia doesn't have that. The only thing that they can do, and they started doing that, so last year they started with the prosecuting counsel to start this board that you can go in front of, and then they can present that evidence saying you're not doing your job. I mean, the Athens DA was way worse. I mean, she literally had her and one other prosecutor left in her office, and they were losing murder cases left and right. And they can't do anything about that. They have, and everything was tried. They tried to go in front of a judge and say, make her do her job. There's nothing you can do. She's elected. And so, therefore, they started with this board so that they can look at those cases. And I think you're going to see some movement on a lot of these cases coming up. But, you know, again, it's almost election time, so it may be too late for us to do anything about that. But so that's why we need to vote.
All right,
For
Ange.
the good old-fashioned way.
microphone.
Okay. Andre, are you campaigning in the inner city and with churches and groups where these, criminals live? I know Meg developed relationships with young children and was in the inner city a lot.
Yes, and I am doing that. It is, and this is one of those things that I think is something that I find weird with it's my faith. I don't like to go and campaign at a church. I just have never been able to think that that's a good thing. I understand that that happens, and it may be something that is a U.S. thing. I'm not sure, but so yes, I will be going to churches there because it's still, you're listening to the Word of God no matter where you go. But, I just don't like the idea of campaigning while you're supposed to be listening to the Word, right? I mean, it's a strange thing to me, but you don't mix business with.
Okay, turned it on. All right, that was our last question. Lisa did her great job of scanning the room. So big applause for our candidate, Andre. Yeah, very informative. We're going to stay in touch, what we can do to help. There's a lot to do, work to go on, and we want to make sure you get elected in November. So
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you. And you can follow me on Facebook, I think, and I have a website. I can give you my phone number if you need my phone number, if you need to call me about anything or ask me any questions. So I'll get you all that.
Why can't we label Soros as the terrorist that he is?
Well, and so I don't know specifically how that part works. What I know from the PAC that's given her money is they have a person that's over it, and it's not Soros, she is a different lady, and they developed this mandate that says you have to do these things because it works somewhere. I mean, it doesn't necessarily work here, right? I mean, 90%.
Doesn't work anywhere.
Well, we don't. Yeah, I mean, it would work if you're living in middle of Idaho where you have 40 people, maybe. But
I'll let you two take this offline. So again, thank you for a wonderful year. I hope you all have a wonderful summer.